Good evening, and good evening. I know today is an election across the United States. The election will be deciding who will be the world leaders of these great nations. There is two important candidates, the incumbent President Donald Trump and the Democrat leader Joe Biden. So it's a crucial as the vote counting continues. Of course, their leaderships affect the rest of the world combined, but so too Africa as a whole. But one of the important questions that I keep on asking, as a former son from Southern Cameroon, where close to 40,000 people has been killed by La République du Cameroon, and one of such person that is not actually Southern Cameroon is the former United Nations Secretary General, Kofi Anna. His death, although has been fully ignored, but my greatest question and worry was Kofi Annan killed? I think that there is some indication that Kofi Annan may have been killed, and there is a high level complicity that France, the chief manipulator of African countries, for their own self glorifications and self centered interests rather than the interests of Africa. There are 13 colonies of France in Africa. And so France used Africa as a tool because of the weak foreign policy, weak leadership, and the corrupted system in Africa, that France is taking opportunity to use these tools and against the African descent. You remember former President Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton came into power and found the corrupted system of the United Nations. His, his intention was to clean and all the mess at the United Nations. And he came to the point when United Nations Secretary General Brutus Ghali of Egypt was elected. Brutus Ghali were more concerned of the Middle East rather than the crisis he supposed to be handling in a non-bipartisan way. It was serious concern for Bill Clinton, and Bill Clinton knew that for his reform agenda to succeed, they need to get rid of Brutus Ghali. And it comes at a point where United Nations leadership require some reform at the United Nations headquarters. And it was a point that though Brutus Ghali was from Egypt in Africa, and it was a turn for Africa to be head of the United Nations. So therefore, Africa is required to replace Brutus Ghali, as shown by Bill Clinton that we need a complete reform. We cannot allow Brutus Ghali to inherit and destroy the world. And so the person that the United States support was Kofi Annan. So Kofi Annan was a brilliant individual that is not biased, that was to clean the mess at the United Nations headquarters here in New York. And when Kofi Annan, still an African from Ghana, took over, he was a very pragmatic leader and tried to reform the United Nations, working in collaborations with the various stakeholders. And at the same time, he was a non-nonsense leader, and he knew exactly what was the chronic problems facing Africa. And so he dived into Africa to clean the mess. One of such incidents was Southern Cameroon questions. Southern Cameroon should have been given their independence as mandated by the United Nations Decolonization Act. But unfortunately, the British government failed to accomplish its job as the United Nations decisions that the territory that were under administering authority be given full right independence. So Southern Cameroon should have given that rightful independence. But with a self-egoistic British government and prevent France's expansion in the east region of Africa. So by rewarding Southern Cameroon and ignore the sovereignty of the people of Southern Cameroon as mandated by the United Nations. But British saw East Africa as a future eyes of France. But to prevent that is to allow the Southern Cameroon to be handed over to La République du Cameroon. That would give an opportunity for France to control and manage through indirectly. And this burden, that is what has cost 40,000 lives of citizens of Southern Cameroon to date within the last 4 years. First, Southern Cameroon is the first in West Africa to have an elected leaders democratically. Indeed, Southern Cameroon demonstrate these skills by electing a prime minister and transfer power, first with Endele, and secondly with Foncha, and thirdly with Gumjua. That would have given British government officials that Southern Cameroon has demonstrated skilled leadership by electing its leaders, and therefore they were prepared for a full nations as mandated by the United Nations article. Unfortunately, that did not happen as predicted. There are a few articles. You have Article 1514 XV, Article 1608 XV, and 76B of the United Nations Charter. Those should have been fully implemented on Southern Cameroon, but definitely it didn't. It didn't happen as it is. So today, as the people of Southern Cameroon are rushing for questioning the validity of La République du Cameroon claim over Southern Cameroon, the chief manipulator, France is blocked every conversations at the United Nations headquarters here in the United States. France blocked every aspect, and look at the human toll, African lives that have been killed. And you can see what is happening in Nigeria is not exception. When the people of Southern Cameroon began to question the validity of La République claim in Southern Cameroon, France knew that it was a threat to France's hegemony in Africa. And it's going to continue lingering around. So France, first of all, rushed to Chad to sign what I can describe as a triangular bloc against the people of Southern Cameroon. Emmanuel Macron went to Chad to sign an alliance with Chadian and crossed to Nigeria to form another alliance because Nigeria is an English bloc, which obviously will be in line with the Southern Cameroon as a former British administering authority was based in Enugu House of Assembly in Nigeria, where both administrators were managing both Southern Cameroon and Nigeria. So therefore, it was vital for France, Emmanuel Macron, to build that relationship against the people of Southern Cameroon. And La République, so there was a triangular bloc against the people of Southern Cameroon. Since France could not indirectly go into Southern Cameroon with the military, so therefore they must station in La République du Cameroon and use whatever tools they have to block every quest for freedom of Southern Cameroon. In light of this, the people of Southern Cameroon and other citizens across the world began to question the validity of La République present in Southern Cameroon. This also confirmed with the former United Nations Secretary General, when during his term as in office, Kofi Anna, in 2010, he presented two identical maps The map presented to La Republic indicate that the United Nations still recognize the Southern Cameroon as a separate entity and La Republic, and that there are two nations living together under one umbrella. And that remind La Republic, by presenting these two identical maps in 2010, pose a threat to France's control. So France, and working in collaboration with La République du Cameroon, are looking for every means to ensure that, because there was indication that Kofi Annan could be a mediator between the La République and Southern Cameroon, since he was the Secretary General. And therefore, by mediating, he could play a vital role on the Southern Cameroon question. And so therefore, France must work out a way to eliminate Kofi Annan, a Ghanaian citizen, and with the complicity of La République du Cameroon. We don't know how it played out that Kofi Annan was eliminated, but it was a crucial for La République and France to eliminate Kofi Annan as a means to their ends. And so Kofi Annan left. So now the people of Southern Cameroon are now being loose, despite the fact that they have a valid, legitimate questions. And who is La République du Cameroon in the first place in Southern Cameroon? First, La République do not have any valid identity in Southern Cameroon. La République is an opportunistic that over time has used with France's complicity as a means so that they can build or corrupt officials of certain citizens of Southern Cameroon so that they can siphon mineral deposit in Southern Cameroon and utilize in France. So today, the people of Southern Cameroon across all the world, La République is dishing out money to corrupt officials in Southern Cameroon, despite the fact that they have no valid mandate in Southern Cameroon. Of course, one will expect the British government to come to the aid, knew that they did wrong on behalf of the people of Southern Cameroon. Of course, Southern Cameroon has chosen gun options as a means to their aim because they would have expected the British government to acknowledge the fact that it was their error they made on the people of Southern Cameroon and recount their error and so support the people of Southern Cameroon quest for freedom. As we continue to linger around, the people of Southern Cameroon are being killed like animals, and yet it doesn't attract the United Nations headquarters here in New York because the leadership at the United Nations is corrupted, the most corrupted. I used to learn about the United Nations and I felt it was a very amazing place that I could be working there. But the more I learn about the United Nations, the more I distrust the United Nations, the more I lose faith because it is the highest scam of its high level that is being managed and manipulated by France rather than for the interests of the common good of Africa. And yet, France, you have the Organization of African Unity, which is also France control every aspect that to ensure that each of the leadership are all francophones, which are all under the control umbrella of France. So absolutely does Africa have any single voice to raise and to support its nation. So Africa is just like a tools that are being utilized by France for their own self-glorified interests, and yet African being killed indiscriminately. You all saw what happened in Nigeria. Buhari formed an alliance with Emmanuel Macron, and now the alliance has not turned against him, and Nigeria now is in chaos. Africa need to rise and denounce France once and for all so that they can be on the forefront and rebuild Africa for the good of all Africans. It is time we need to ask, where is Kofi Annan? Was Kofi Annan died natural or intentionally killed because he presented two identical maps to Paul Biya in 2010. So as this question linger around, I will continue to this pattern and asking these questions. Where is Kofi Anna? Thank you for listening. This is Fundon Daniel for the voice of the voiceless, here from the great state of Texas, here in the United States.